Radio Play Comics is meant to adapt the stories mostly of great unadapted, old and forgotten comics from the past. I use voice acting and narration to abridge the work as much as possible without lessening its impact, and to bring these stories to life the best way I can. Please enjoy. Hi, I'm Nick, and welcome to the Fusion Space for today's episode of Radio Play Comics, Before Watchmen, Minutemen. Before Watchmen was a series of prequel comics to the original Watchmen, further developing its characters and revealing a bit more of the world's history, and their own. Nothing here is meant to change or break the canon set by Watchmen, only to fill in some of the many blank spots in ways that feel congruous with the main book. There is no overarching narrative, and the books only tie into each other in small ways, so any can be enjoyed on their own. I'll be adapting them all eventually, spaced out with my other long-running series, and in this order most likely, ordered as they begin chronologically. Ozymandias is a chilling portrait of a villain in the making, and his is a series of heartbreaks given to him by the world, hardening his heart while sharpening his mind. It's a grim road he walks, but he is also undoubtedly the most effective hero of his time. Comedian is another walk into darkness as he changes through several wars and changes in power in the government, while Dr. Manhattan's view is of the universe itself and the largest scale as he mucks with quantum physics and time. Nite Owl shows his origins and the team of himself and Rorschach in action in their early days, while Rorschach's book focuses on his time alone in the 70s, and one brief window of his life, as does Silk Spectre, but in the 60s in her youth, while Dollar Bill and Moloch both tell their life stories. So you can see there's a wide range of styles of story being told, and in a great variety of ways. Today we begin with Minutemen, which tells the story of the origins of superheroes in this world and the first team, which began in the 1940s. And it is framed as Hollis Mason, the first Nite Owl, recounting his memories as he prepares to publish his tell-all book, Under the Hood. We'll see him deal with his contemporaries' response to his proposed book as he recalls his memories of what actually happened, and it's a much darker tale than what the future will consider to be the truth. In fact, I'd better give a content warning, as this book deals with violence and abuse done to children, and it's somewhat disturbing to see, as it should be. Still, if that sort of thing is a trigger for you, I'd advise you to skip this one. You can still enjoy the other Before Watchmen series. This is the harshest one on the sensibilities. From the teams coming together, we'll see their heyday, their time of greatest popularity, deserved or not, and we'll see that some of it was an act for the public, but the real work is being done in the shadows as Nite Owl and Mothman help Silhouette track down child abductors and traffickers, something the team considers best kept off the front page. After the Silhouette's untimely death, we'll see the group's response to the tragedy as Sally takes revenge on her killer, before meeting up with her own attacker, the comedian, at Silhouette's funeral, long after the incident. Both of them are changed people who then reconnect and share the love that will give the world Laurie, the second Silk Spectre, and whom Hollis views as a niece. In their final days, what's left of the team will stop terrorists seeking revenge after the war, and Nite Owl closes his oldest case when he finds hooded justice to deliver his own brand of justice to the corrupted former hero. The story concludes with the second age of heroes beginning and the old-timers finding their endings, most of which we already know from Watchmen, and the final fate of Hollis's book is revealed. But a new crop of heroes is on the scene, and to continue the legacy set by the originals. Darwyn Cooke turned in amazing art and writing for this project, and I think it's the best a work like this could possibly turn out. For you naysayers opposed to any extension of the original work, I ask you to give this extremely talented man's work a chance. Now then, let's begin. You come into this world, and your point of view is narrow. If you're lucky, it's a safe and loving place. As a baby, Hollis Mason looks out of the arc of his bassinet. As you grow, your view of the world broadens, and you struggle to find your place within it. The city can be seen through the arc of a bridge overhead. If you're strong, you learn to survive it. Over time, you may not decipher the mysteries of the universe, but you can make your peace with that, and find strength in what you know to be true. Planets orbit in the arc of the sun. If you're wise enough to approach this seeming impasse with humility, you may even find a sustained happiness. Then one day, you meet a guy, and he throws a wrench in the gears. He takes away your understanding of the world you live in. The gears of the universe turn about the arc of Dr. Manhattan's head. He takes away your belief of what you knew to be true. Such a thing is bound to bring you low. The moon is reflected in a round puddle on the ground. So you search for the things that brought you happiness in the past, perhaps the things that comforted you with their sense of function and order. Hollis works on a round part from a car engine. You hope that, over time, the hands rotate around the face of a clock on his mantle. Over time, this is terrible. I'll just have to face facts, girl. I'm no Tolstoy. Going for a deep, philosophical ending here isn't going to work. I guess we'll just have to stick to being ourselves, huh? Let's say we start unpacking some of our stuff. Hollis pets his dog. I know. Retired 4 days and already talking to the dog. So I'm crazy. Hollis picks up his statue. Huh. This thing. The mystery man's equivalent to a gold watch. Hello? Oh, hey, Larry. Did you get the draft of my book? Did I get the book? What are you all of a sudden, the funny man? Of course I got the book. I got the book, and I read the book, and I said to myself, Hollis has finally snapped. Lost his mind. Come on, Larry. There's nothing in there that isn't true. That's the problem, boychick. I took the train up here to talk you out of this craziness. I'm at the Stilton. Come by at 9 tomorrow. We'll have breakfast. Fair enough, Larry. See you then. Ching. Well, girl, I don't think he liked our book. Under the Hood, my autobiography. Some folks refer to this type of book as a tell-all, and I suppose it is. Over the months it took me to complete, I found the act of writing seemed to purge me of the darker aspects of my secret life, as if I trapped all of it in a bottle I could now toss away into the surf. Hollis blows dust off a framed picture. Lately, when I think of those times, the dark parts fall farther and farther away from my limited line of sight. Hollis admires a photograph of the Minutemen. From down here on Earth, I can only see what I want to see. From here in my empty apartment, I can only see the good. The Minutemen. The Minute of Truth. 1939. An artist's conception shows a man in a hood with the headline, Masked Vigilantes, One-Man War on Crime. Hooded Justice was the first of us. I'd read about his early exploits, and they were in no small part responsible for my decision to become a mask. I'd been preparing for my role as Nite Owl about 2 months when the radio call came in about a triple homicide at a federal bank. 4 men pulled the job. 2 had vanished, but 2 were at large inside a Battery Park factory. Word had it they'd been chased in there by Hooded Justice. If that was true, I had a pretty good idea of what had happened to the 2 others. Chapter 1. 8 minutes. The police surround a warehouse and speak into it with a bullhorn. Attention in there! This is your last warning! Come out unarmed in the next 2 minutes, or we're coming in after you! Cops, what a laugh! They're the least of our worries. Did you see what that Cooke did to Tony and little Bob? Jesus, the way he...
Will you shut up about it? We have to think.
Maybe we should surrender to the cops.
And fried for murder? Don't be an idiot. There has to be a way out of here. Maybe we should get to the roof. Monty, don't screw around.
None of us on the street know for certain what happened in that factory, but we all heard the screams. Deep, keening, animal sounds splitting the night air over and over, punctuated by blubbering pleas and desperate intakes of air. It was like that for a full minute or more, easily cutting through the steel and cement and glass to fill the street with its horrific noise. The last mook drops his gun, and then, abruptly, silence.
Please. Oh, Jesus. Please.
He pisses himself in terror and drops to his knees.
Please. No. I'm sorry. So sorry.
Hooded Justice approaches him. What broke the silence was less a scream and more a mournful, wailing cry. It seemed to gain and grow closer, cutting through our blue serge to the skin and bones beneath. And then it burst into flight above us. The crook goes flying out of a high window and comes down on a police car. I know a guy that was beside the car he landed on. He saw it all. Heck, he wore it all. He handed in his badge a few days later. Everyone was glued to the horror show on the hood of the car. I'm pretty sure I was the only one who saw him up there. A red cape flutters in the window. In a flash of red, he melted into the darkness. Terrifying. A double-page magazine interview shows Sally Jupiter stretched out on a bed. Now, Sally Jupiter was a whole different story. Not so much fearsome justice as unbridled capitalism. And you can't talk about Sally without talking about Larry Schexnayder, her manager.
Larry saw the masked adventurer thing as a social fad to cash in on. In that regard, he was endlessly creative. For example, let's say you knew about an uptown jeweler fallen on hard times who could use some free publicity. And say you knew some out-of-work actors you could throw a mask on and give a catchy name, like, say, the Red Devil. A masked crook runs out of a jewelry store. You could stage a fake robbery and have your heroine foil it in grand fashion.
Silk Spectre lassos the crook as he runs away.
All you need is to alert the press.
She leaps on top of him.
And hogties it.
Struggle all you want, little boy. I love it.
If you had all that in place, the evening editions were yours for the taking.
Come on in, boys. Don't be shy. Lord knows I'm not. Photographers take her picture.
The only thing that could foul you up was us. The cops.
Hey, Chief, get over here for a picture.
Larry had that figured, too.
Isn't this the face of an angel? Look at those cheeks.
Go on with your bother.
Smile, Chief.
Look, Chief, I know you have your people to worry about, but this is extortion. The price has doubled in the past 4 weeks.
Well, Lawrence, it would appear that the widows and orphans have considerable needs we hadn't accounted for. You do want to help your community, don't you, Lawrence?
That, or I could run your Jew ass in and lock you away till the second coming.
Larry hands an envelope to the police chief.
Relax, relax. Honestly, where you Irish bastards get the nerve to call us cheap, I'll never know.
On behalf of the wee orphans, I thank you, Lawrence. Now get out of my sight.
I hope it doesn't sound like I'm judging her, because none of us begrudged her ambition. Sally has grown to become an incredible woman and mother, and she remains one of my dearest friends.
All right, boys, that's it for today. A good day to you, Miss Sally.
A shot of Hollis jumping across buildings accompanies the headline, Exclusive, first photos of the city's newest hero, the Nite Owl. I was next, I suppose. Being an NYC patrolman made it easy to be where the crime was. I'd pick up overtime shifts in areas where I thought there might be trouble.
A truck full of armed men speeds around a corner on a busy street. From its windows, they fire at a police car chasing them.
Are those gunshots? You'll have to excuse me, folks. Please stay back here.
Beat cop Hollis Mason ducks away.
Back then, I never hesitated. Never thought twice. Make room, people. I've already detailed how I trained and the effort that went into designing my uniform. I know I wanted to do good, and I'm pretty sure that on a community level, that's just what I did. But that doesn't explain what I was doing.
Hollis changes into his night owl costume in an alley.
There are all kinds of sane ways to help your community that don't involve a mask and short pants.
He runs down the alley towards the chase.
When it came right down to it, I did it for the thrills, for the excitement of putting myself on the line.
Nite Owl leaps into action, diving for the passing truck.
There was no procedure for what I did. What the hell?
He snags the back door and swings from it.
I had to make it up as I went along.
Dodging his blast, Nite Owl swings into the back of the truck and kicks the gunman there.
Try to get the upper hand and keep it.
His gun fires wild and a bullet ricochets into the driver's head.
Bang! Ooh. Bobby? Ooh. Be prepared to shift gears when everything spins out of control.
The truck swerves into something and is launched into the air.
You're dead, you son of a bitch!
The truck flips in midair.
Adapt to your situation and use it to press your advantage.
Nite Owl jumps forward in the truck and slams the thug's head into the dashboard.
And never, never forget the most important thing. No matter what it takes, protect the innocent.
He sees innocents in the path of the flipping truck and dives out, tackling the people to safety.
Oh.
The truck lands and slides to a stop.
Hey, Mom, look! It's Nite Owl!
Hey, Merry Christmas. In his mugshot from the state of New York Juvenile Correctional Services, Edward Blake wears a black eye and a smile. This story wouldn't be complete without mentioning Edward Blake. As I said earlier, time has pushed the good in everybody to the front. Eddie is the exception. Even then, at the age of 16, he seemed more like a thug than a hero.
What I'm saying is, I go to all this effort to rid your establishment of what we'll call the criminal element, and you don't seem the least bit grateful.
What?
The gratitude. That's what I'm saying. Where's the gratitude? I mean, shit. The least you could do is offer me one of these goddamn dirty eggs.
Eddie crunches an egg in his mouth. Ha 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 ha! Jesus, kid, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. My caseworker says I have moments of uncontrolled rage brought on by traumatic events in my childhood.
He swings the bat into the jar and the barman.
That was the worst egg I've ever eaten. You really should get off that filthy floor. I'd give you a hand, but I'm too busy helping myself.
Eddie empties the cash register of its bills and snags a bottle off the shelf.
Ha ha ha!
The comedian walks off into the night. A newspaper clipping reads, "Flying Man or Clever Hoax," next to a blurry image of a man with wings.
Byron Lewis was rich and brilliant. His innovations in the field of aviation and the patents from said wonders had made him wealthy beyond measure at a very early age. His thirst for new challenges had led him around the world in search of romantic adventure. The mask fad was made for Byron. Byron's genius provided him with a unique ability, but it had come at quite a cost.
Byron's desk is filled with memories of adventure and health concoctions.
The test phase of his glider suit had led to several accidents, some of them near fatal.
Pictures of planes adorn his walls.
He lived with constant pain and the constant fear that the suit would betray him.
A prototype glider hangs in his study.
This was before the morphine, when he was running on liniment and aspirin pills.
Mothman stands at the edge of his building.
I know I couldn't have done it. He had to gauge the wind and weather by the second. His weight couldn't vary by more than 3 pounds. He had to step out over space and believe he could fly. It was much later he told me all of this, before things unraveled completely. You see, he was scared of his own creation. Every time he flew, the fear would swell inside him just a little more. Eventually, he needed something to help him believe.
Byron takes a drink and tosses the bottle over the edge.
The common story is that Byron was the weak one, the one who cracked up. I see it differently. Byron Lewis was brave like 10 men, and then he cracked up.
Mothman takes flight. A flyer reads, "Hey kids, get your free dollar bill coin bank when you open a Junior Saver account. National Bank Co." Mobsters hold up a bank with guns.
Alright, Toots, just put all the money in a bag and no one gets hurt.
Yeah.
Dear heavens, they're robbing the bank!
Drop the Roscoes, you cheap crooks.
Oh no, it's
Dollar bill! We're saved!
You need to spend some time in the big house. Maybe that'll teach you not to steal from innocent people. Dollar Bill knocks them both out with uppercuts. Put your money where it's protected. National Bank, the bank with a hero in it.
What a dreamboat!
The logo of the National Bank Company runs at the end of the newsreel film.
Like most of us, I met Dollar Bill at the movies.
Silhouette is on the cover of Vogue, which reads, "Vigilante Chic." Silhouette jumps off a rooftop, trenchcoat billowing in the wind.
It's hard to think about Ursula without my heart breaking all over again.
She swings from a lantern rope.
There are all the salacious stories and the scandal rags and all the innuendo people love to wallow in.
Ayah!
A man carrying a rolled carpet looks up in alarm.
To the world at large, everything you are can be stripped down to a humiliating joke and then filed away for laughs at get-togethers. Then there's the other side of the coin.
She bounces off an awning and jump kicks toward him, but he knocks her away. Silhouette draws twin Mausers.
Out of the way! Stop him!
He ducks into an alley.
Drop that carpet, you son of a bitch! I swear I'll shoot you dead!
Out of all of us, I think she was the one most sincerely committed to doing something meaningful.
As she runs down the alley, he clotheslines her and she drops her guns.
Ursula came out of the horror that was Austria after Adolf Hitler's Nazis had seized control. Most of her family was lost during riots in a town called Linz.
He kicks Ursula on the ground.
She and her younger sister suffered greatly at the hands of the National Socialists before she was able to escape. Her sister wasn't so lucky.
The large man picks her up, choking her. She pulls a derringer, which he slaps away. Silhouette plants a boot on his chest and pulls a knife from it.
It gave her a will and experience that you couldn't see in her slender frame. These unseen strengths caused many to underestimate her.
She flips the knife in her hand, then slashes his chest open as she kicks away.
Yeah!
He examines his bloody hand.
I'm hurt.
The large man runs away.
Where's the damn carpet?
As the silhouette, Ursula was able to break open a child pornography ring. That led to the child trafficking that feeds the photos and one-reelers.
Ursula finds the carpet.
Do you think those kids cared that she was a lesbian? Would they be any less thankful?
She opens it to find a frightened young boy.
Please, no more.
Would they have owed her less?
Ursula takes him in her arms.
It's okay, child. You're safe now.
She was an avenging angel. I guess I kind of loved her, which should go a long way to explain how screwed up I am.
A letter, signed picture, and business card are paperclipped together in an envelope. The inscription reads, "Your comrade in crime fighting, Captain Metropolis."
Nelson Gardner was a retired Marine lieutenant that had done quite well as a military consultant. As impulsive as my decision was, Nelson's had been deliberate and planned to the last detail. While building the persona of Captain Metropolis, he cast about for a suitable base of operations. In 1928, the Canada Malting Company had begun construction on an enormous malting factory on the shores of the Hudson. It was the largest factory of its kind, and the Canadians spared no expense in its construction. The crash of '29 destroyed Canada Malting's taste for international trade, and the building went unfinished. It spent the next decade languishing through the Depression. When Gardner saw it, he knew it was the place. The CM on the building's facade had clinched it. To Nelson, it seemed like fate itself. The government was happy to unload the building for a ridiculously low sum, just to have it off their books. So headquartered, Nelson went about the business of planning his war on crime. It was his idea for us to come together. His military background led him to the conclusion that a unit could be more effective than a bunch of individuals running off in 10 directions at once.
In the base, a telescope and radio room overlook the water.
He contacted Sally, because she was the only one of us who had an agent. It wasn't long before Nelson and Larry found themselves in agreement that a group effort could have its benefit.
Dear Mr. Schexnayder, let me first thank you for the enthusiastic reply to my letter. I am heartened that the Silk Spectre and yourself see the merit in my proposal. Uniforms for various situations stand ready in glass cases. I am excited by the possibilities you outlined, and I believe that between Miss Jupiter and myself, we have sufficient star power to attract other mystery men. Wait, make that to attract other masked adventurers. Strategic markers adorn a large map of the city. I would also note that I bow to your obvious knowledge in regard to publicity and communications. Your idea of placing an advertisement in the major newspapers is quite excellent, and I believe it will ensure our endeavor is successful. News clippings and other media featuring Nite Owl, Hooded Justice, Eddie Blake, and Silk Spectre cover a bulletin board. Should we decide to move forward with this, I would like to volunteer my headquarters as a gathering place. For the last several months I've been fortifying a sanctum from which a group such as ours could operate. A fully stocked gym stands ready. Perhaps we should arrange a meeting to finalize the details and put our plan into motion. You may reach me directly at Klondike 579. I remain your crime-fighting comrade, Captain Metropolis. Nelson is addressing his manservant as he bathes. I want that typed up and sent out with the morning mail.
Very good, sir. Like I said, Nelson and Larry were both smart enough to see how a group like the Minutemen could have its benefits.
Now, be a good boy and lay out my evening clothes. I'm eager for my night patrol.
Some would say we've been paying for those benefits ever since. They tell me that these new guys can do amazing things. They say one of them can even catch bullets.
Nite Owl ducks as a bullet launches itself at him from the barrel of a gun.
Me? I always had to just dodge them the old-fashioned way.
A coffee stain crosses an O in Under the Hood.
These days I've found a more deadly group of adversaries. Publishers, managers, and agents.
A circular sign on the window advertises ham and eggs.
It's strictly dynamite, Hollis. This isn't a book.
A circular egg yolk begins to run.
It's a bloody confession.
1962.
I suppose you're right about that. But it's my confession, and I need to make it.
But you're making it for all of us, don't you see? What about the chapter with Sally after Ursula's death? Have you thought about Nelson? I mean, what good will the Minutemen name be after this? You know, you're not the only one with big deals in the works.
That's the truth of it. You don't care about Sally or any of us. It's the brand name and what you can wring out of it. Do you know why you lost it all, Larry? Do you know why the Minutemen failed? Greed and attention were the only things you knew how to appeal to. You had no idea what some of us were all about. Some of us were there for something else. Something bigger and cleaner. Boychik, you don't like the truth? Tough. The book stands.
Hollis drops money on the table as he leaves.
Why the hell did I bother coming here? I can't blame Larry for this. It'd be like blaming the sun for rising. He was an agent and a huckster, and he would be till the day he died. I was the one dumb enough to think that over time maybe Larry had learned a few things about being human. Thoughts crystallized in my head differently since I started trying to write. It hits me fresh that half the reason I had to write the book was because I'd gone along with Larry and all of his sleazy cover-ups. I'm not blaming Larry for my failure. I did what I did, and I feel a moral certainty regarding that. It's the whitewash that I can't live with. It makes it all seem wrong.
He sees a bus ad for a Dr. Manhattan TV interview.
More crystallizing. The definition of middle age. Your past is deep enough to haunt you, and the future stares you in the face to mock you. I filed that one for later. I'm starting to hate the city. So young and clean and electric. So buttoned down and tame. Taxi! We could never have pulled what we did in today's world. 1939. That fall, New York was packed with people who had fled Europe for the safety and promise of America. Hitler had started a world war, but from here it seemed as far away as the moon. Back in my rookie years, beat cops were assigned to the neighborhoods they lived in. One day I helped an Italian kid get his car started. After that I was deemed okay for an Irishman.
Hollis stands elbow deep in a car's engine in his uniform.
All right, Tino, try it now.
Try now, Tino.
Bellissimo!
We did it, Officer Hollis.
Better take it for a spin to be sure. Mr. Masante, can I see your paper for a second? Sure, Officer Mason. You worry about the war, yes? I can't remember what I said to Mr. Masante.
Hollis sees an ad which reads,
"The call goes out. Attention! All men of mystery, masked adventurers, and costumed crime fighters, Captain Metropolis and Silk Spectre want you for a new group of Americans dedicated to the war on crime." 2 weeks later, I pushed down my embarrassment and ended up at the audition.
Larry stands in the background as Captain Metropolis and Silk Spectre interview the candidates.
Just relax. Tell us your name and anything special about your skills.
They are a man in a frog suit.
I'm the frogman. Mom says I'm a real good jumper.
Next.
A woman dressed as the Statue of Liberty.
Liberty Lassie is my name, and I'm a triple threat. I can sing, dance, and I cook a mean brisket. Fascinating.
Some of the people were complete imbeciles.
A man in a gray sweatshirt reading Hank, wearing a bucket on his head with eye holes cut out.
No, just Hank. Next. Others just appeared to be.
Mothman stands, wings extended.
I can fly.
Next.
A man wearing a suit of homemade armor, wielding a torch.
I'm the Iron Lid. We burn them all, yes? Next.
A woman in a cocktail dress.
I'm the slut. I like to take off my clothes and do things.
Yes. Next.
And Nite Owl.
I was so nervous I got a little tongue-tied, but they knew of me, and that took the pressure off. No need to embellish, good sir. We are well acquainted with your exploits. They had me stay after my audition. I remember that moment well. Deep down, I was still a Midwestern hick, and the fact that these big shots took me seriously filled me with gratitude.
Welcome aboard, handsome.
Indeed. 4 weeks later, Metropolis deemed us ready for battle. This was our first mission together, and Larry and Nelson had worked hard to pick something that would grab a lot of attention. Because of our team name and the rumble of war overseas, they wanted us introduced to the public as modern patriots.
Nelson looks out from an armored vehicle with binoculars.
There goes Sally, right on time. Our target was a group of Italian Fifth columnists who were rumored to be smuggling weapons into New York Harbor. They operated out of an old import-export warehouse near the docks.
Silk Spectre strolls up to the guard on duty.
Well, hello, big boy. Would you like to light me?
Whatever success we had as a team, we owed to Nelson. From the beginning, he was able to mastermind a large operation and figure out our parts within it.
Comedian, Nite Owl, and Silhouette sneak over the wall while Sally distracts the guard.
Sure thing. What's a twist like you doing out in these woods?
Just waiting for a ride.
You ain't worried about wolves and the like?
Should I be? You look completely harmless to little old me.
Nite Owl quietly subdues another guard inside. They climb a ladder to the roof and sneak in through a skylight.
Time to bust some heads.
Shh. Men are unloading crates on the ground floor.
Nelson's information had been spot on the money. I couldn't make out what they were saying because they all spoke in Italian. But they sure as shooting looked like they were up to no good. We hung back and waited for Mothman's cue.
Mothman, flying high above on reconnaissance, radios in his report.
They're in the building and in position. Over.
Excellent. Maintain your position and drop your ordnance in exactly 60 seconds. Over. Hang on, men. The time is nigh. Captain Metropolis starts up their vehicle.
Is it guns? Explosives?
Inside the crates there appear to be fireworks.
What the hell is that?
Oh, that?
The vehicle approaches.
That's my ride.
Silk Spectre puts on brass knuckles and slugs her guard, knocking him out.
Nelson's military experience had taught him how to use us. We were the infiltrators. Sally was the diversion. Metropolis himself and the big boys were our armored infantry.
She doffs her coat and takes Hooded Justice's hand, who swings her onto the back of the vehicle as it barges through the gate.
We even had our own Army Air Force. Nelson had thought of everything, except verifying his information.
From high above, Mothman drops his smoke grenade into the warehouse.
And perhaps the possible effects of a sparking smoke grenade in a warehouse full of alleged explosives.
It bounces into an open crate.
Watch it.
Ching! Just as the military vehicle crashes through the door.
Either way, that night the Minutemen brought the wrath of God down on one of the most evil cabals that had ever threatened to destroy this fine country of ours. The deadly Chinese fireworks smugglers.
Wait! Stop!
It was a total disaster. There were no weapons. Just cherry bombs and Roman candles.
The warehouse explodes in a huge fireworks display. The warehouse catches fire, and soon the fire department arrives.
There are honest mistakes, and then there is what we did next. Metropolis let the saboteurs go after threatening him if they spoke up about the incident. Then he told Larry and the rest of us to hightail. I knew I should be calling this into the station and taking what was coming to me. I was a cop, after all. But the thought of all the shame and embarrassment, the jail time, well, I ran as hard and fast as the rest. They say that some folks see the problem and other folks see the opportunity. Instead of lying low, Larry arranged our first press conference.
Captain Metropolis holds up a large cannon shell at his podium. All destruction of this ring of saboteurs will keep these deadly weapons out of enemy hands. Last night was just the beginning. Let America's enemies know that the Minutemen stand against them.
The shell was from Metropolis's own vehicle. I kept waiting for someone to question us, catch us in his lies. But they didn't. They ate it up. They cheered us and put us on the radio and the front page. Somewhere in my head, I gave into it. After all, we were the good guys. Nite Owl knew this was best for everyone. With the public behind us, now the Minutemen could really do some good. But Hollis Mason wondered what his dad would make of it all.
1940.
I must say, Captain, this place is looking grand.
Thank you, Sally. It's just such a relief that we finally have a proper room to meet. Those silly chairs took months to have made. Okay, everyone, let's start off.
Before I hand it over, I wanted to mention we made the papers 3 times this week, and the radio shows are giving the stations record ratings. If we keep our eye on the ball, there's no telling how big we're gonna get. Next week I have a photographer booked, so we can get some proper publicity stills of the group, so make sure you look your best. Speaking of the radio and such, when do we start to see some of the dough from all that? You've got nerve. Word is you take whatever you need. The cops say there's one thing about all the crooks you haul in. They're always broke. Hey, a kid's gotta eat. You want I should sleep in the goddamn gutter? Enough. Actually, we do have monies coming in. For those of you who need help with living expenses, let me see what I can arrange. Fine. Can we get to business? In front of you are the copies of a chart I devised. Based on the zones of the city we seem to work in, I put together an overlapping patrol schedule. This will allow us to cover the maximum area in the most efficient manner. This won't work for me. Fridays the banks are open late. It's my busiest night. So now you're telling us when we patrol? Yes, that's what leaders do, Edward. As for you, Bill, everyone is responsible for their patrol. If you can't make it, you find one of us to sub for you. Sounds complicated. Take it home and study it. We'll put it into action next week. Now, some brainstorming. We deal with street crime day to day, but we need to set our sights higher. Any thoughts on major crimes we should target?
I've made some real progress with this child trafficking ring. I think together we could really do something good there. Please, that is not a good case for us. Excuse me?
I think she's trying to say it's a fine case to pursue. It may not be the right type of case for publicity. Such a sad thing, these children. We want the public to think happy thoughts when they think of us. You know, some dumb crime boss gets beaten up and grandma is saved. Not sad little children who've been molested by pornographers.
Jesus.
What about this Moloch character? Yes, that's just the thing. He's a crafty young devil, and well known to the people. Good. I don't want to cut you short, but we're running late. We'll pick it up next week. Justice, a word in private? I hope you find the meeting room inspiring. I had the wood brought here on a ship from Africa. Sure. Silhouette storms off alone. Hey, Captain, I move you go grab us some beer. Seconded. Hollis finds Ursula putting on her coat. You're taking off already?
I must. I know that the radio shows and the papers are very important, but I'm working on a case that needs my attention. Go drink your beer, Mr. Owlman.
Is that why you think I'm here? To hang around and drink beer?
I have no idea why you are here, only why I'm here. If you'd like to help, you may come with me.
Mothman joins them. So, what are you two doing? What's the rush, Silky?
Sorry, boys. My adoring public awaits.
Come on, Sally. We're gonna be late.
Good night, boys. Sweet dreams.
Larry and Sally drive off. Man alive, that is one quality woman. Grade A quality, especially in the torso area. You're pretty fresh, kid. You should be more respectful. By the way, how old are you? I figure if I'm old enough to fight crime, I'm old enough to have a goddamn beer. Fair enough, lad. But I want you to think about what I said. If you show people respect... Shut up. Listen, you hear that? Just assumed you were going to stay. I suppose I thought we could... Silence your whining. Dollar Bill and the comedian look at each other in surprise. Huh?
These long days are killing me. I just want to get this cincher off and have a nice hot soak.
Sally, honey, we got a problem I need your help with.
What now? A stag party? Department store opening?
I'm serious. This whole thing between Justice and Metropolis is going to blow up in our faces if we aren't careful. I was thinking you could beer Justice so the press doesn't get wise.
You can't be serious. You want me to pretend I'm seeing Hooded Justice? I don't have the equipment for that assignment.
Come on, Sally. I wouldn't even ask, except...
Just stop talking, Larry. I'm not doing it, understand?
Damn it, Sal. Why do you do this? I'm working day and night to get us up to that brass ring, and when I need your help, all you do is fight me.
You really need my help?
What am I gonna do? Ask Silhouette?
All right. You're right. I'll do it. I'm sorry, Larry.
It's okay, Sal. Let's forget all that for now.
Remember that time in Warsaw when we were broke and I got you that engagement at the Moritz? Remember that prince? Where was he from? I don't know. Doesn't matter. He said you were the most beautiful creature in all of Europe. He was wrong. He was? Yes, he was. You're the most beautiful creature in the whole wide world. Oh, Larry, stop. It's true, and you know it. You're going to be big, Sally. The biggest.
Ursula shows Hollis and Byron a building near an abandoned circus ground. Hollis admires her dedication, but she doesn't do it for admiration, but because it's the right thing to do. She tells Mothman to go down from the roof, while she and Nite Owl go up, and he flies off of their rooftop.
Jesus, I can't get used to him just leaping off roofs like that.
Come along, Mr. Owl.
A small boy explores a circus. When children are playing alone on the green, in comes the playmate that never was seen. When children are happy and lonely and good, the friend of the children comes out of the wood. Nite Owl tries to get closer to Ursula, but she rebuffs him. They find grim evidence, a small bloody handprint and ropes. Back at the base, Nelson and Hooded Justice engage in bondage. The boy finds other children in a cage. He lies in the laurels, he runs on the grass, he sings when you tinkle the musical glass. Whene'er you're happy and cannot tell why, the friend of the children is sure to be by. Mothman, Silhouette, and Nite Owl make a gruesome discovery. The boy at the circus runs, but a large figure stops him. He loves to be little, he hates to be big. 'Tis he that inhabits the caves that you dig. 'Tis he when at night you go off to your bed, bid you go to sleep and not trouble your head. Whene'er you're happy and cannot tell why, the friend of the children is sure to be by. The Minutemen have found a body hung from the ceiling.
Up until the night we found that poor boy, I'd always seen things plain and simple.
The comic book version of Nite Owl socks a thug along with his hooded canine companion.
You see a problem? Fix it. Ursula used to say that the problem with men is they think people are like cars. If we just know what's wrong, we can fix it.
Hollis works in his shop, Mason Auto.
She was right, of course. That night and the events it spawned have brought me to the conclusion that people and cars are very different things indeed. I've decided I'll fix the cars, and let someone else worry about the people.
1962.
Mr. Mason? In person? You got some kind of car trouble? No, sir. My troubles this morning pertain to your book. My name is Norbert Velden. I am a friend of Nelson's. Nelson sent you here? He does not know I have come here. I see. Come on, let's get out of the sun. You want a coffee? No, thank you, Mr. Mason. I will say my piece and be on my way. Fair enough. You read my book? I have not. I do not waste my time with this type of trash. But Nelson has read it. To say he is upset would be an understatement. Have you given 1 second's thought to what this will do to him? He hasn't slept since he read this thing. He talks of suicide and worse. I must forbid you to publish such a book.
Forbid me? I'm sorry, Mr. Belden, but there's nothing in that book that isn't the truth.
Bah! Such a smug man you are. There are many truths, but I can see that you are blind to that.
Insulting me isn't going to change anything.
This is the insult, Mr. Mason. This book of yours. Garbage!
Norbert hurls the ripped pages in the air.
You will be hearing from our lawyers. They know how to deal with garbage men such as you.
Norbert tips over a stack of boxes as he leaves in anger.
So Larry wants to kill me and Nelson plans to sue me. That leaves me 0 for 2. No surprise there. Of all of us, they were the most sensitive about their image. Can't say I blame them, really. If my book goes away, the fantasy we built remains an official reality. People will go on remembering us as some sort of charming moment in American history.
Hollis notices a Minutemen comic book on the floor.
A brightly colored fad with a moral to its story. The problem is, more than any of them, I know better. And I can't seem to let it go.
Chapter 3. Child's Play. 1940.
The comedian attacked Sally. Apparently, Hooded Justice intervened before it went too far. Metropolis had convened a special men-only meeting to determine the comedian's fate. It sounds like we have a decision.
Nite Owl smiles at the comic book adventure in his hands.
For God's sake, man, this is serious business. Will you put the funny book down?
Things are pure and clean in the comic book world.
On a mountain looking over the great city stands Freedom Tower, home of the Minutemen and shining symbol of virtue and justice.
No need. I say he's out, plain and simple.
Very well. If we're all agreed, let us go render our verdict. We should expect the worst.
Don't worry about that cur. Well, tell me, Captain Kangaroo Court, what's the verdict?
The decision is unanimous. You are hereby expelled from the Minutemen.
Look, I made a mistake, okay? Things just got out of control before I knew what was going on. Let me apologize to Sally. I'll make it up to her. I promise. This is all I have. Please don't throw me out.
Comic Sally carries a banner reading, "All for one, one for all," with the brightly colored comedian right beside her.
These young patriots have joined together to protect the world's greatest nation from the forces of tyranny and evil.
Come on, fellows, shouldn't we try to be forgiving? I mean, look at the way Sally presents herself. He's only a kid, for goodness sake. Watch your mouth about Sally, you stuffed shirt. He's a crook and a woman beater. The Minutemen have to hold themselves to a higher moral standard.
Higher moral standard? Is that a joke? We blew up a goddamn warehouse full of firecrackers and we told the world we'd save them from Axis terrorists. You want to talk about perverts? You sick fucks are going to judge me?
Nite Owl grabs the comedian by his collar. That's it. Get out of here now while you can still walk.
What are you going to do? Book me? That's right. You're a cop, aren't you? You think I can't smell it on you? Goddamn hypocrite is what you...
Hooded Justice separates them.
Enough. You son of a bitch.
Eddie yanks on Justice's noose.
Remember the Minutemen pledge. Loyalty, courage, fair play, and clean living for a better America.
Hooded Justice gives an old woman her cat rescued from a tree.
My heroes. What kind of stupid bastard fights crime with a noose around his neck?
Eddie flips him over onto the meeting table.
Not so easy when I don't have my back turned, is it?
Someone should stop this.
Stop squirming, you pansy. That's right, you heard me. You just lay there and listen good.
Eddie pulls out a small revolver and aims it at Justice's head.
If you ever put your dirty hands on me again, I'll kill you.
He points the gun at Captain Metropolis.
Stop right there, missy. I'll choke your boyfriend to death and blow your head off just for kicks. Remember what I said. If I ever see you again, you're dead. Bunch of queers. Go fuck yourself.
When America needs red-blooded he-men to defend her virtue, the mighty Minutemen will be there to answer the call.
Comic Silk Spectre and Silhouette swooned over the comedian.
What a man!
1942. The comedian has traded his bright yellow for a black costume, continuing to work on his own.
I said drop it, Tojo. Stupid bastard.
The man on the floor crawls toward a gun.
Huh, still got some fight in you?
He kicks the gun out of the man's hand.
Sorry, pal. I don't speak Japanese. Let's try it in American. Where are you shipping the explosives?
That's some nice work, Eddie.
Who the hell are you? And what did you call me?
Relax, Eddie. My name is Colfax. I'm with the FBI. The man shows Eddie his badge.
A Fed, huh? Well, I guess I can't shoot you. What's the charge?
Charge? Eddie, I'm not here to bust you. I'm here to recruit you.
I can't believe the energy I had back then. I'd work my beat, patrol my neighborhood, was active in the Minutemen, and my spare time was spent helping Ursula. We'd become familiar enough that we'd meet once a week. New York was awash with people, and there seemed no harm in it. Our only rule was no last names and no details about our outside lives.
Hollis tells Ursula he and Byron are both classified 4F, and due to various other reasons, all of the Minutemen are sitting out the war. He feels unmanly, but Ursula reassures him they're doing a lot of good by helping the children they've been tracking together, and asks for his help tonight. He has to work his beat, though, but he gives her the number of a call box he checks periodically, as well as his full name.
If you need me for anything, just call it in.
Hollis, wait.
She shakes his hand.
You're a good friend. Thank you.
I remember dipping my head to hide my blush. I felt lust toward her, but it was such a small piece of something larger.
At a future time, Silhouette is having her wounds tended in a bathtub by someone soothing as she also recalls these events. Nite Owl joins Dollar Bill on a stage.
When National opened a new branch, Bill was a star attraction to neighborhood kids. He'd usually get Mothman to fly in as a surprise guest, but Byron had been hard to get a hold of lately, so this time the kids had to settle for me. They didn't seem to mind. It did me a world of good. Back then, the only kids' cries I heard were the ones that haunted my sleep. Bill had it made. After a light show of acrobatics and a pep talk about being good little citizens, the limo rolled up and whisked us away.
Just lie back and close your eyes. Remember, I'm here, and when you're ready.
I tell you, this sure beats running everywhere. Damn straight. Beer? Thanks again for coming out. I know it's kind of silly, but the kids get a real kick out of it.
We can begin.
The woman helping Ursula switches on a tape recorder.
Don't mention it. I had a swell time.
Ursula, darling, tell me about tonight. It was a large house, kept by powerful men as a meeting place. A gentleman's club. But I saw no gentleman there tonight.
Men watch a projector in a dark room filled with cigar smoke.
Just swine, huddled together in their collective shame. Such men fear only one thing. Exposure. My intention had been only to scare them. Then, in the flickering light, I saw her.
A small girl is their captive.
Like a ghost. Like a tiny ghost surrounded by darkness. Then I had the guns in my hands. What is it Hollis will say? Yes, I saw red.
I'll be listening to Metropolis, and I'll suddenly be thinking about him and Justice, and it makes me kinda sick to my stomach. Yeah, I know what you mean. Then again, maybe each man should tend his own garden, right? You've been spending too much time with Byron. Are you a God-fearing man, Hollis? You know the Bible says homosexuality is a mortal sin, don't you? Not to mention our image. What if someone found out? They're sinners, Hollis. They're going to burn in hell. Come on, Bill. That's a terrible thing to say. You're right, Hollis. It's not for me to judge. Out loud, at least. Another beer? Yeah. Last one, though. I'm on duty in an hour.
Silhouette tears through them like a storm, knocking over the projector as she slaughters the men with her guns.
Ursula, Ursula, darling, where are you now? I am killing them. All of them. I want her to see them die. My hip, it stings. We have to run.
She grabs the girl and runs.
Before it's too late. Before one of them can catch us.
A wounded man on the floor shoots Ursula in the back as she exits.
I feel a hot spear push me through the door. Hang on to me, child. My arm.
She falls down the stairs and the girl goes flying.
Whoa! Please, hang on. But she can't hear me. She's just a ghost girl. The bullet passed through me to find her tiny heart.
Blood spreads from the bullet wound in her chest.
And I see it then. I see that in death her eyes are unchanged. She really is a ghost girl, murdered long ago and fading from me in the flickering light.
Silhouette continues to fall.
Boing! Boing! Boing!
A police call box rings and Hollis rushes to it.
Hello? This is Mason.
It is I, Officer Hollis. I need you.
Silhouette? Are you okay? Where are you?
I am at church, you silly man.
She's hurt. I can hear it in her breathing. It takes a minute to get a location out of her. I almost called it into the station, but I can't.
Nite Owl jumps between rooftops as he races to her.
I want to be the one. I want to save her for myself.
Where are you now, darling? You are silly, like Officer Hollis. I am in church. The three of us are very quiet.
The three of you?
He is there, but he won't even look at us.
Lying against an altar where she has placed the young girl's body, Silhouette gazes up at Jesus on the cross.
Why? Why don't you love us? Why don't you love me? It is then that I realized he did hear me. He had sent an angel to me.
Hollis picks Ursula up and carries her out of the church.
He picked me up and bore my burden, and he told me to be still. He told me he loved me.
She'd lost a lot of blood, but her breathing was steady. All I knew was she needed medical attention fast. So I hot-wired a car and got her in the back. It hits me what I'm doing. I'm a cop who deserted his beat, tearing through town in a stolen car with a mask on.
Jesus, where is the girl? We have to save her.
She's gone, Ursula. We can't save her. I'm taking you to a hospital.
Hollis? No, we can't go there. I want you to take me to Gretch, to my doctor. Please, Hollis. She's prepared for this. Do you understand?
Okay. Just try to calm down and tell me how to get there.
Thank you, Mr. Angel.
A doctor was uptown, so I cut north and went as fast as I dared. The doctor didn't even seem fazed by it all. She just hustled us in, all business. At the time, I assumed they had an arrangement of some sort.
That's enough for now. Rest there for a moment, and I'll be right back.
Gretchen switches off the tape recorder and goes out to see Hollis.
How is she?
She's in bad shape, but the bleeding stopped and she's resting.
Well, thank God for that. Would it be okay to see her for a minute? She's kind of special to me.
Oh, I see. Perhaps in a day or two. Right now she needs to rest. I really must ask you to leave now. Call me in a day and we'll see about you coming by.
Thanks, Doctor. Thanks for everything.
Gretchen shuts the door.
Gretchen? Coming, darling. Let's get you out of there. Ugh.
Gretchen puts Ursula to bed with a comforting nursery rhyme.
The stone with the white and the yellow and gray we discovered I cannot tell how far away. And I carried it back, although weary and cold. But though father denies it, I'm sure it is gold. Of all of my treasures, the last is the king, for there's very few children possess such a thing, and that is a chisel, both handle and blade, which a man who was really a carpenter made.
Comic Silhouette is perhaps the only one whose reality lives up to her image.
The Silhouette, avenging angel and patron saint of children everywhere.
Hooray!
People have an amazing ability to cope with the madness of life. It's called denial. It'll take you a good mile, but only if life's horrors stay on the pages of your newspaper where they belong. I learned all this listening to a very wise woman named Gretchen.
Round rolls of recorded tape bear the names of the Minutemen.
For example, the Nazis killed 6 million Jews. Solemn, monstrous in its scale, but somehow we can mentally manage it. Now, I watched them tear my children from my dead wife's arms and drag them to the ovens, screaming. Or, they raped her in front of us and then threw her body into a ditch filled with stinking corpses. She starved to death there. See what I mean?
The swastika burns in the circle of the sun.
These are life's small, intimate horrors. They course through all times and all places, and no one is safe from them. They ripple and teem beneath the surface of the symbol. the maxim. Her words, not mine. How many of these horrible little truths can a person absorb before they want to crawl in a hole and hide?
Nite Owl disappears beneath a round manhole cover. 1962. Byron Lewis watches the globe of the sun rise.
Byron? Hey, Byron. I tell you, some of the nurses in this place would have given Sally a run for her money. Am I right? Look, I don't want to upset you, Byron. You know I love you. I suppose Byron is the best friend I ever had. You go to hell and back with someone, and it binds you forever. But I need to ask you if you read the book, if you're okay with the things I've said. Byron? The problem is, Byron never really came back. Don't feel like talking today? That's all right. I know that feeling. Mind if I sit a while with you? It's darn pretty here. So we sit there, staring into the setting sun, two of the walking wounded from an unknown war.
1946. The Minutemen tear through a group of fishmen.
Our differences aside, the Minutemen had managed to do a lot of good during the war years. Finally, ultimately, the war had ended with a horror so complete the entire world lay down its arms.
2 atomic bombs are dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Chapter 4. War Stories.
At the time, I don't think many Americans looked too deeply at the consequences we'd inherit for unleashing such awful forces. We were too busy celebrating.
The comedian, now in his modern garb, enjoys a ticker-tape parade with the military.
Byron had bought a deserted machine shop with an enormous sub-basement as a kind of secret workplace. It was becoming a sort of hangout for us.
So did you see their cover of Light this week? As long as he's gone from the Minutemen, I say good for him. He scared me more than the Screaming Skull.
He's a maniac. They should have locked him up, but instead he's a government-backed hero.
Come on, Hal. For all we know, his time overseas has changed him for the better. Like I always say, each man should
tend his own garden. Thank you, Farmer Brown.
Happy days are here again.
How's it feel?
A little strange. Step back and we'll try it.
Byron's wings fold out of their backpack.
I'll be damned. It works.
See? Ball joints. If it's too mushy, we can replace the rubber bushings with some aluminum from... He retracts them.
Aluminum?
Shh. And what he described as the bloodiest crime scene he'd ever had to work. It was just 6 weeks ago that the infamous vigilante had been exposed as a lesbian and expelled from...
The radio reports the grim news that Ursula has been murdered, along with her lover, Gretchen. Hollis and Byron visit Ursula's grave.
Small, intimate horrors. They're what get you in the end.
I had them leave the stones unmarked. They don't need any more of this world's hate.
I didn't know what to say to Byron. He knew I cared for Ursula, but I'd never talked to anyone about how much. I'd had some kind of schoolboy fantasy about the two of us, because I was too much of a hick to see the lay of the land. The time I'd found her in the church and got her over to Gretchen's finally showed me how oblivious I was. I went to visit the next day with some fresh flowers I got from Mrs. Musante.
Hollis is crestfallen and his flowers hang low in his hand as he realizes the depth of Ursula's relationship with Gretchen.
It was the most awkward, embarrassing moment of my life. But still, I loved her, somehow. It made no sense, but feelings often don't.
That relationship is revealed to the world in the newspaper.
Then came the newspaper expose. The Minutemen held a meeting to vote Silhouette out, to avoid being smeared by the scandal she didn't even show.
So, how was your meeting?
The vote was 4-2. The hypocrites. I mean, justice in Metropolis or no...
Please stop there, Hollis. You cannot know what living such a life is like. The fear of exposure. It is not for you to judge.
I'm not judging. We're a team is all. We're supposed to stick together.
And we will. You and Byron and I can still be stuck together.
What's that?
They are pictures. Over these years we have helped so many young ones, but the ones in these pictures are different. They weren't trafficked or used in pornography. They just disappeared and then turned up dead. I think they are the victims of the same killer. Can you look up the police files on them?
It'll be a little tricky, but I suppose I could swing it.
Please, Hollis, promise me you'll do this.
At her grave, Hollis remembers his words to her.
I promise. I gave her what I could copy out of the police files a couple weeks later. She dropped out of sight after that, until 5 nights ago.
Hollis answers his call box.
Is this Officer Hollis?
Well, well, if it isn't my good friend, the Invisible Lady. Where in Sam Hill have you been?
We are in Marina Bay, near Boston. I have been working on our case, and I have much to tell you. Can you meet me tomorrow night?
In Boston?
No, Mr. Silly. We will be back tomorrow. I'll see you then.
Her voice had a faraway sound, prickling with line static. We said our goodbyes, and the line went quiet. They died that night. A revenge killing by a third-rate pervert called the Liquidator. Horribly, terribly. They died. Together.
Ursula awakens, but not in time to stop her knife-wielding killer,
Leaving me alone.
Jesus, Byron. Let's get out of here.
I could use a drink.
Sally watches Byron and Hollis leave.
Hello. I know we didn't get along. The truth is, I didn't like you much. You always took the superior tone with me. I just wasn't like you. You know, not so committed. Running around in fishnets and taking racy pictures is a step up for me. You made me feel cheap. All I ever wanted was to escape all the things that you couldn't let go of. You reminded me of all the things I want to forget. I should have stood up for you that day we voted, but I didn't. I was happy you were out. I didn't like you because you were a better person than me. I want you to know how sorry I am for that. And I wanted you both to know that you can rest in peace now. Let me tell you about the Liquidator. 2 nights ago, Metropolis got a tip that the Liquidator was back in New York. Get me my boots, Larry.
You mean your shoes, right?
Did I say shoes, Larry? Get me my fucking boots.
Take it easy, Sal. Black boots coming up. Metropolis wants you all there in an hour.
Silk Spectre's overcoat is loaded with weapons.
Geez, Sal, you sure you need all that stuff? Let the boys do the heavy work.
I know, Larry. Don't worry. It's just better safe than sorry. This guy is a nut.
Sally straps a knife to her fishnetted thigh.
You relax and enjoy your radio shows. I'm taking the car. There's corned beef in the icebox. Don't wait up, hon. The Liquidator was hiding in the Tenderloin. Metropolis had Bill and Nite Owl search one area, he and Justice the other. My guess is they knew best where to look.
Captain Metropolis and Hooded Justice rumble through the criminal underworld, looking for information.
I wish you could have seen the 2 of them when they bullied into the Liquidator's hideout.
They crash in the door.
Give it up, Liquidator. Good Lord.
And find the floor covered in blood and weapons.
It's about time you got here.
Silk Spectre awaits them in the carnage, smoking a cigarette.
Sorry I skipped your little tour of Boys Town. I had my own sources.
Sally, you did this?
That's right, Nelson. I owed her this, at least. We never should have turned our backs on her. It may not have changed any of this, but it was a petty, cowardly thing to do. She was the best of us, and we helped destroy her. You 2 should be doubly ashamed. You call yourselves men? Clean up this mess. It's all you're good for. And, oh yeah, I quit.
What's left of the dead and mangled Liquidator lies in the bathtub as Sally leaves.
So, yeah, I went home and I told Larry. No more. I mean, I'm no hero. But you already knew that. I hope You can forgive me.
A hand gently rests on her shoulder.
Hey, Sal.
Eddie?
In the flesh. It's good to see you, Sal.
She backs away.
Eddie, what are you doing here?
Relax, Sally. I just came to pay my respects, same as you. I'll go if you want, but it'll be nice to talk. It's been a long time, Sal.
For a long moment, they stand together in silence. Eventually, Sally asks,
So, what was it like over there?
Jesus, Sal. I wouldn't know how to explain it all. They jammed my head full of all kinds of training. Counterintelligence, advanced combat techniques, survival, sabotage. I mean, the whole ball of wax. Then they dropped me in a squad of Marines at Henderson Field in this South Sea shithole called Guadalcanal. 'Cause I was representing the G, I was given what they called tangential authority vis-a-vis regional commanders. This captain named Peterman let me know what he thought of that. You see anything fucking funny around here, Mr. Comedian? No, sir. This is my first real action, and I wanted to know the score before I started biting back. I let the old man rant. Well, I do. I see a jackass in a shiny helmet sent by a bunch of fucking politicians to paint a happy face on this goat rodeo. You know how that kind of thing is, Sal. I mean, between men. I couldn't let him talk to me like that in front of my guys. With all due respect, sir, go fuck yourself. Did you just read my mind? Because we are fucking A1 simpatico. Now get out of my tent. The feds had told me to expect this type of uphill from assholes like Peterman. They said the way to handle it was to excel within the theater. Somebody give me a proper helmet.
Eddie leaves his shiny helmet in the dirt.
A PT boat dropped us about 6 miles up the coast. It was the first time I was alone and in command. The men didn't know what to call me back then because I had no rank. We settled on boss. I liked that. We were in a cleared area to spot and map all the Japanese caves that laced the hill so demolition squad could come in later and seal them up. Do you know what a bonsai charge is, Sal? When the Japanese figured they couldn't win a battle, they'd all charge at once on a suicide run, taking as many Marines with them as they could. By the time the fighting was over, there'd be no Japanese left.
Open ground up here, everyone spread out.
Excepting for the odd sniper.
A soldier goes down, fast. Dang!
Sniper! He's in the tree line! The men broke for cover and ran straight into a minefield. This evil little fucker had this all figured out.
A landmine explodes, taking out several men.
I was deaf from the mines. I caught the sniper's position and peppered the tree line. I clipped the bastard, but not before he tagged my fireman.
Your fireman?
Yeah, the guy that wears the flamethrower. Landed on a mine and the whole goddamn field went up.
The comedian is thrown by the blast.
I felt one whistling hell of a pain tear through my side and I blacked out. When I came to, it was dark. The whole valley was still smoldering. I thought I heard one of my men moaning in the dark. I tried to move and must have passed out again. I woke up broiling in the sun, to the feel of hands roaming over me. It was a Solomon woman and her boys scavenging for food and shit. They thought I was dead. I tried to speak and blacked out again, I think. It's kind of foggy. That night I woke up for real, weak as a kitten. But I was clean and cool and alive. So was one of my riflemen, a Californian kid named Greg.
Eddie awakens in a cave high on a cliffside.
Welcome back to the living, boss. Where are the rest of the men? We're the only ones what made it, boss. I sure am glad to see you up and around. You caught some shrapnel that burnt you pretty good. I think you had sunstroke or something. You found this place? Patched me up? Shit, no, boss. She did it. Got me on my feet, then we dragged you up here. She got a regular PX going in this old cave. It was a woman and a boy. I remember thinking that if she taught a survival course, we wouldn't be in this mess. I went back to sleep. A couple times I woke to find her there, watching over me like a sick pet or something. By nightfall the next day I felt good enough to move out.
Eddie gives the child his helmet.
You keep it, kid. You know, Sal, I ain't used to kindnesses. I think maybe it was the first time I'd ever really felt one. I didn't know what to do. Couldn't even thank 'em. No speaky and all that.
How'd you get back?
We swam it. Fucking sharks and eels and all manner of slithery shit in the dark.
They cling to a log and swim back in the river.
By dawn, we made the beach.
Snipers? A minefield? God damn it, son, why didn't you radio it in?
'Cause our radio man was blown to hamburger. If it wasn't for that crazy Solomon woman, we'd be dead too.
Corporal, have them radio the destroyers. I want artillery to turn those hills into a fucking pool table. Sir!
Did you hear me? There's a woman and a kid up there.
You're tearing my heart out, laughing boy.
6 of my men were dead and I hardly felt it. But the thought of the woman and the kid, you know? They saved my life. I guess I figured I owed them.
Eddie rushes through the jungle.
I broke clear of the jungle and had the cave in sight. I was yelling and screaming to try and get their attention up there. I was too late.
The napalm bombs begin to land.
I hid under a rock to wait it out. It seemed to go on forever, and when it was over, I couldn't believe it.
The jungle and hills had become a blasted landscape, with nothing left unburned.
There was nothing left. Nothing. So, you know how you think then. Maybe they were down by the water. Maybe they got out through a cave. The stuff you tell yourself so things don't seem so bad. At least, that's what I used to do. After that day, I stopped fooling myself with that shit.
A figure emerges from the smoke.
She stood there in front of me, smoke clinging to her burnt skin, like a chicken with its head cut off. The boy was just a cinder of burnt meat, stuck to his side. Jesus, Sal, I'm standing there in front of her, and what can I do?
The woman is shot in the head.
What are you, one of them sadists? Standing there like some big Mary while that poor savage suffered? Even a goddamn dog gets the mercy of being put down. And before you start with any bullshit about fair or right or wrong, you mark my words. This is a war, laughing boy. And in war, the only real joke is that fair gets fucked like a whore during Fleet Week. He was right. All her effort, all her kindness and ingenuity. It meant nothing. In the end, it counted for nothing.
Eddie, that's horrible.
I know, but it was true. After that, I just closed the door on all of it. The enemy became animals to me. Just dogs that had to be put down.
That captain was a monster.
You think? I had kind of mixed feelings about him. Part of me was real grateful he'd opened my mind. I suppose you're right, though, because the next night I snuck into his tent and slit his throat with a Japanese bayonet. I owed that Solomon woman that. I felt better after, like I had a clear head about what I was doing over there.
Graffiti left behind reads, "Fuck Kilroy, comedian was here."
Eddie, why are you telling me all this?
I don't know, Sal. Maybe so you can see what I see. Sometimes you can screw up and things can go all the way bad. You can't change that. You could kill a captain or a liquidator and even things up that way. But you can't change anything. You have to be able to look it in the face for what it is and forgive yourself.
Nite Owl visits Ursula and Gretchen's already ransacked house for her latest leads on the child killer case. While there, he finds a children's book and tapes with the Minutemen's names on them with a recorder, and he takes everything related to their activities. He feels for a moment like he's being watched, but shrugs it off, along with his reservations about breaking the law as a cop by tampering with evidence. After he leaves, Hooded Justice emerges from the shadows.
I headed back to Byron's hideaway. The entire building was boarded up to deter the curious, and the only way in was through the manhole in the alley. The thought of having to lug all that gear down the ladder had me cursing under my breath when I heard him. Byron? Passed out cold. I could smell the whiskey coming out of his pores.
Hollis, what happened?
Easy, buddy. It's okay. You just took a spill. Let's get you inside.
I'm sorry, Hollis.
Don't be goofy. Let's just get you upstairs. After I unloaded Byron, I brought all the gear from Ursula's in and then shot out for some coffee and sandwiches. When I got back, Byron looked like he'd gotten his act together.
Hey, what's all this?
I took it from Ursula's. What's that you're eating?
Hashish. Helps with the pain in my back and knee.
Jesus, Byron.
They had a tape recorder? Pretty specialized equipment.
I think Gretchen used it for her work, but there's a tape on each of us. The earliest dated tapes are labeled Ursula.
Do you think we should listen to them?
I do. And God help us, we did.
I met Ursula and her sister Blanche in Linz shortly after the riots. I was a chemist in a large orphanage. The Nazi takeover had given us several new charges, including the girls. Ursula wouldn't let Blanche out of her sight. She doted on the child, and in time her hurt and confusion subsided. I watched how she cared for her, never letting her mask of hopeful cheer slip.
Ursula reads to the younger girl from the children's book.
However, when she would catch my eye, I saw the look of someone who understood just how grave their lot was. Day by day, the orphanage was slowly taken over by Hitler's army. Soon there was a part of the orphanage that was off limits to us. We had all heard the rumors. I don't think anybody wanted to know what went on in that horrible room. It was then that the children began to go missing.
Soldiers stand guard outside a door reading verboten, or forbidden.
At first it wasn't alarming. Children run away from such places every day. But the frequency of such incidences increased. Amidst all of this, Ursula and I improbably, foolishly, found each other. I knew time was short, and I had to act. Every penny I could muster went to a forger for travel papers that would get the three of us to the United States. The next morning I found Ursula beside herself with worry. Blanche had gone missing. We both knew she hadn't run away. But what could we do? If we spoke up, we'd be taken away, like so many others had been. I spent the morning in a trance, making discreet inquiries that brought no answers. And then I saw Ursula walk by my office with the cakes.
As the guard eats his cake, Ursula takes his gun from his holster.
Oh?
She acted without fear or hesitation, without mercy.
She shoots both of the guards.
I felt my love for her vaulting over everything. I let her courage set our fate.
And she opens the door. A large hooded man stands by a bloody metal table holding Blanche's small body.
She saw everything in there. She saw the very worst that you could imagine. It shook her young mind to its foundations.
Ursula fires the gun, but the man ducks and knocks it from her hand.
Ursula had loved her sister in a way that made life without her unthinkable.
He chokes the young girl. Gretchen picks up the gun and shoots him dead.
As I now loved her. Somehow we managed to get away.
Gretchen pulls Ursula away from Blanche's body.
Two pathetic women with no one but each other,
They hide from the soldiers.
running from something they'll never escape.
They flee into the night. The tape runs out.
We sat there in the silence. I felt a great blackness pushing down on me. A rippling, teeming blackness. When the children are playing alone on the green, in comes the playmate that never was seen. 9! When children are happy and lonely and good, the friend of the children comes out of the wood.
9! 9! Oh, 9.
Hooded Justice wakes up in the night, sobbing. Nelson is too afraid to ask him about it.
When they started building the bomb in Los Alamos, they needed to find ways to stimulate enriched uranium, to push it to its critical limit and locate the precise instant before it became an uncontrollable chain reaction of death and horror.
Nite Owl, Captain Metropolis, and Hooded Justice ascend a spiral staircase.
They called it tickling the dragon's tail. The problems with this should be obvious. It involved human effort, and therefore, by definition, human error. One false move, and everything changes.
It collapses around them and they are swirled into the atomic doomsday clock. For all time. 1962. Never been much for Los Angeles. Imagine Death Valley if a bunch of swells showed up and planted funny trees. But I see how the kid is, and I think it must be a great place for her to grow up. Jesus, she's 12 now.
Uncle Hollis, watch me, Uncle Hollis.
I'm watching, kid.
Cowabunga!
Little Laurie dives into the pool. Boom.
I'll never be a father, but there's a thing I felt whenever I saw Laurie. That thing a man feels when he loves someone so perfect that he wants to keep them safe. An uncle's pride, I guess. She's amazing, Sally.
Poor Hollis. She has you wrapped around her little finger. Before she gets out, we should talk. Larry came by here last week, and Nelson called me at night crying his heart out. I'm assuming you're here to tell me you've come to your senses about that dreadful book of yours.
Not exactly. I came here hoping you'd be okay with it.
Okay with it? Okay? With which part? The part where I'm young and vain and shallow? The part where I murder the liquidator? The part where Eddie attacked me? Honestly, Hollis, I know you don't have a mean bone in your body, so I've come to the conclusion you're just stupid.
Come on, Sal. Aren't you being a little overdramatic?
What do you think this is about? You? Me? Some guilt you feel for doing something you regret?
Sally,
Do you think that's what this is about? Take a look around.
Laurie gets out of the pool.
That is, if you can pull your head out of your behind long enough.
Sally? Come on, Sal. Sal, I'm sorry.
Mom?
Sally goes inside.
Why is Mom crying?
It's my fault, kid.
Don't blame yourself, Uncle Hollis.
I realized all of a sudden that this wouldn't be happening if I'd just been smart enough to quit when Sally did.
She does that a lot, even when you're not here.
Chapter 5. The Demon Core. 1947.
Dollar Bill. The poor guy didn't stand a chance. Killed by his cape at a revolving door. It was sad, and to many, pathetic. To many others it seemed darkly hilarious. Like all jokes, whether it was funny or not depended on which end of the joke you stood.
Dollar bills float down to join the masked man who shared their name.
Bill was a good man, and a good friend. I miss him. So pardon me for not laughing along. Byron and I worked Ursula's case. Even with the years of work and all of her evidence, we still couldn't fill the blank spots. I felt it was my fault, that I'd forgotten something that would have solved the whole mess. We listened to all the tapes. Gretchen was dabbling in this new thing called psychotherapy. There were hours of Ursula's thoughts on the case, her own life's tragedies, and us. The Minutemen. Lots on us. It was getting to the point that I heard her thoughts spring to mind when I saw my friends.
Mr. Byron, such a brilliant, gentle man. I fear his own frailties will consume him.
Later that year, Sally and Larry got hitched. Not so much married as partnered up.
They are a perfect pair. They both love to see her get attention.
It may not have been the most romantic affair, but we were all there to wish them well.
Speaking of the bride, where is she?
Powdering her nose. Let me see if I can go find her.
Oh, God. Hello?
It's me, Sal. You okay in there?
Done in a minute, hon.
In the bathroom, Eddie is banging Sally on the side, even on her wedding day. The Minutemen now consist of Nite Owl, Mothman, Hooded Justice, and Captain Metropolis. With Bill dead and Sally gone, that left the four of us. I'm still not sure why we didn't call it quits right then. Byron and I worked the case, canvassing, patrolling, and chasing down kids who came up missing. Once or twice a year another kid would turn up dead, and my guilt would deepen.
This thing needed Sherlock Holmes and Watson, not a drunk and a beat cop with quick fists. By then, the costumed adventure fad had passed. There just weren't that many villains left to fight. Every now and then, King of Skin or Moloch would show up and we'd go through the motions. Other than that, the Minutemen had even given up on regular meetings. Without Larry driving things, it all just lapsed.
Boing!
Byron? Byron and I hadn't seen Justice or Metropolis in over 5 weeks when the call came in.
Boing!
Byron, answer the phone.
Hello? Really? Come on, don't play. Okay, fine.
What the heck was that all about?
It was Nelson. I think we'd better get over there.
Nelson had made it sound like it was a matter of life or death for thousands. Arriving there, I began to have my doubts. I trust you two know of Bluecoat and Scout? Everyone knew of Bluecoat and Scout. They were America's favorite heroes. The problem is, they were comic book characters. They weren't real people.
Bluecoat jumps from his motorcycle onto a moving car. With a mighty leap, Bluecoat hurtles toward the spies.
This is a joke, right? Let me guess. We're gonna fight a gang of funny book pirates before they steal the crown jewels?
I realize how this must seem to you. All I ask is 5 minutes of your time. Your captain feels quite strongly about it. Come into the war room. I want you to see what we're dealing with. Step lively, men. Time is short.
So who are we going up against? Are the British invading?
Actually, no. It's the Japanese. Do I have your attention now? Last month, a 16-pound ball of enriched uranium was stolen from Los Alamos. Tonight, 12 Japanese nationalists plan to use that uranium to contaminate your city. If they succeed, thousands may die from radiation poisoning. They want revenge for Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Jesus, they have a bomb?
No, they haven't the means or resources for that. They're going to cause a meltdown. See here, men.
Nelson indicates a diagram on a chalkboard.
They have created a tungsten-lined sphere, kind of like a barbecue. By slowly lowering the top onto the sphere, it brings the uranium close to critical mass. Close the top and it goes supercritical. It spews deadly radiation and gets hot enough to melt through concrete and steel.
But no one has ever done that on purpose. It's only happened by accident for a couple of seconds. You would have to do it manually. It would be a suicide mission.
More like a kamikaze run. Goddamn savages. Their plan is to take over a public building with hostages. They will use false negotiations to keep the authorities at bay and buy the time needed to cause the meltdown.
That's a hell of a story. Let's say it's all true. I'll even pretend you and Scout there are real. Just show me some proof. Where is this happening and when?
I don't know the target. If you want proof, turn on a radio. At 10 o'clock, they're going to cut into all major frequencies to announce their demands. 20 minutes. We can afford to wait 20 minutes.
That happened at 10, just like he said it would. It was proof. It made our blood run cold. We went to work.
Drop the settle charge on this side and then land here. We deploy on this side, hold the entrance, and locate the device.
Nelson had come alive. This was the biggest thing we'd ever faced, and he had a fearsome, hungry look in his eyes.
Are you with me?
We have to do this, no matter what it means.
I suppose we all needed it. We're with you, Captain.
Excellent. Mothman, you're topside. Justice, bring the Thompsons and sidearms. I'll start up the boat.
You have a boat?
The team of heroes descend a ladder to the boat.
Nobody said it out loud. It was just so ridiculous. A washed-up quartet teaming up with fictional characters. But inside each of us, even with the stranger and the boy, I could sense this. Inside each of us was a need for this to be real. We crashed headlong into danger, silently wishing for destiny to give us this one chance. To be good. To do right. Bluecoat had been wrong about the target. They didn't go for population. They went after the symbol, Liberty Island. At the precise time chosen, without a drink in him, Byron took point. One last time.
Mothman flies out over the water.
60 seconds, men. Who we are is not important. I understand the secret identity thing. I do. But you're two people pretending to be fictional mystery men. It's kinda crazy. We couldn't go to the authorities, and we needed your help. This seemed a good way of getting your attention.
Would you feel better if we were dressed like birds?
Touché.
The boat slows, and Nelson spots guards on the coast of the island with his binoculars.
Cut the lights. Those filthy heathens. Looked like a dozen or so, all heavily armed. Why'd we stop? We're waiting for Mothman to drop my surprise. What's in the satchel?
Byron drops his package and heads for Lady Liberty's torch.
Some tracers, tear gas, and, of course, some good old-fashioned Chinese fireworks.
Fireworks explode in the air.
The man was in his glory. It's working. They're all heading for the decoy. Here we go, men. Let's show those dirty rats what we're made of.
The boat drives toward the shore.
It all happened in a mad rush from that point.
The Minutemen charge up the stairs, armed with machine guns.
No warnings. Shoot to kill.
The terrorists place the core inside the sphere.
Quickly now. Steady.
The heroes gun down the guards, taking some fire in return.
Huh? Behind us! What are you waiting for? You three get in there and find the device. We'll hold these foes back. The whole thing was insane. Running in there under fire with an unarmed kid.
Nite Owl, Bluecoat, and Scout race up the interior stairs, taking down more guards along the way.
They must be up there. Looks like we climb. No one must get past you. Now go! Yes, sir. Hold up. Do you hear?
Bluecoat is shot and falls over the edge of the stairs.
Son of a bitch!
Nite Owl takes down his killer. Scout calls after him as he falls.
Father? Father!
The kid pulls a knife and charges ahead.
I'll kill you, old man!
What old man? Kid, hang on. Stop!
The terrorists lower the top half onto the sphere, and the reaction begins.
Good. Good. And so, in 30 seconds, we remove the rods and join our ancestors with honor.
On the torch, Mothman draws his gun and steals his will.
Oh, dear God. Please let me do this.
Mothman dives for the crown and grabs the edge of a spike.
Outside!
Byron shoots one of the men in the head, before he is hit in the shoulder and his wing is pierced. Mothman falls into the water as the man he shot hits the ground.
Cover me! We have a man down!
Scout dashes up the stairs at the last remaining terrorist.
Face me! Face me, old man!
Before he can reach him, Nite Owl shoots him in the head.
To this day, I wonder how it would have gone if I hadn't shot him.
The old man's body falls, knocking out the control rods and tumbling into Nite Owl on the stairs.
Kid!
The halves of the sphere close.
I couldn't see up there, but the light was pure blue.
Scout saves everyone by removing the top half.
It took the kid 6 seconds to pull the lid off that thing. He'd be dead in as many days. By the time I got up there, it was all over. He was having trouble breathing. I yanked at his mask. Japanese. The kid was Japanese. It had been our finest moment We saved the island and spared the city a horror I hardly understood. The kid had stopped the disaster, but it had been Metropolis who'd masterminded our assault. The Minutemen could finally lay claim to their namesake. But it wasn't to be. Within an hour, the government began screwing a lid on the whole thing. 12 Japanese men steal our uranium and take over Liberty Island. The whole thing stopped by some Japanese kid dressed like Jim Bowie. They didn't want the embarrassment or the panic such a story would bring. It had been our finest moment, but the public would never know. The boy was sick. Even I could see that, but I didn't really understand. Thank God for Byron. He had some pull at a private clinic and knew what tests to run. I came back okay. Something about the distance and all the metals shielding me. But the kid, that poor kid was doomed. He'd taken a direct blast of more radiation than anybody in recorded history. His mother had died in an internment camp during the war. He and his father had joined the others out of hatred and a need for revenge.
But we realized what we were doing was wrong. What would my mother think of us? Father wanted to stop them some way, but we couldn't go to the police. They would take us away again. The disguise was my idea. Blue Coat is my favorite comic book. We decided to be heroes. Like you.
It had been his grandfather that I'd shot up there that night. I mean, Jesus. I stayed with him those days when I wasn't on duty. I lied to him. I told him the whole world knew what heroes he and his father had been. His suffering was unbearable. The radiation did horrible things to his body. Looking back, I've realized this is why I have some kind of vague disdain for Dr. Manhattan. Some dope forgets his watch and becomes a god on earth. Some poor kid saves New York City, and he gets to suffer and die alone and forgotten. What kind of sick world is this? What was the point of any of it? Byron tried to tell me it did matter. Apparently some scientist found out how close things had come and built some kind of doomsday clock to alert the world. Another symbol. Another maxim. I wish I could say that mattered one damn bit to me. 1949. For a couple of years, things just drifted. The Liberty cover-up had destroyed Nelson.
In his heart, Nelson was a warrior. What good was the fight without the glory?
We decided it was time to call it quits. There was no dramatic split or scandalous scene. We were all just tired of it. The remaining Minutemen go their separate ways. I probably would have retired then, but I kept trying to make good on something way too big for me.
Promise me, Hollis. Promise me.
Hollis is haunted by the children he couldn't save. Byron? Well, Byron tended his garden. In the middle of all that misery, something happened. You're kidding. Well, that's great news, Sally. Hollis visits Sally in the hospital. Life's given me my fair share of women, but I've only ever loved one. Even though 1949 was one of the worst years of my life, I don't remember it that way. It was the year I fell in love again.
Her name is Laurel Jane.
1952. After we broke up, Nelson abandoned the tower and moved back to the city. We'd continued on in our own way, but the public had largely forgotten about us. Until we were called in front of Congress during the Red Scare. That's when Justice dropped out of sight, refusing to come in for questioning. The rest of us didn't like it, but we weren't stupid. We surrendered for questioning together. Captain Metropolis, Nite Owl, and Mothman testified before Congress. The very notion is absurd. My entire life has been devoted to protecting the American way. Subversive? I'm not even sure I know what that word means.
Excuse me, I seem to have... What was the question again?
In order to prove our commitment to our country, we had to unmask in front of an FBI lawyer and sign a loyalty oath. Even a lowly beat cop knows what a big mirror in that type of room means. I had a feeling I knew who was on the other side of it.
Eddie watches from the other side of the glass.
Some youthful associations had made them lean hardest on Byron. The last of his nerve poured out onto his loyalty oath. 1955. I'd never been much of a cop, closing on my 20 and still walking a beat. But I liked it. The neighborhood reminded me there was a good to most people.
Eat, you skinny man.
Thanks, Denise.
Officer Hollis?
Evening, Miss Passante.
Have you seen Tino Jr.? He ain't been home since this morning. He said he was going to the circus with some friends. He should have been back hours ago.
The circus. Was this the thing I'd forgotten? Was the secret to the case there somehow? The whole thing had started near the circus 15 years ago. Maybe this was where it'd end. I perched there, the circus long closed up for the evening. Beyond it sat that horrible building from that night, so long ago. The night we found that first boy. I was steeling myself to start a search, and that's when I saw him.
Nite Owl sees Hooded Justice head into the circus.
So many things raced through my mind right then, but mostly I was afraid. He terrified me. I decided he had to be working the case as well. The alternative was too much to consider. But I hung back just the same. Ursula's voice came up in my ears, as it so often did.
He is a German. Of that I have no doubt. Even with a hood on, I hear the accent. Justice. What an ironic name for such a man. I am thinking he is less about the justice and more about the power and control.
Justice enters the building and Nite Owl follows.
I didn't want to go in there, but I had to. I had to know. I stood at the door of the room I had entered so long ago. I wanted to turn and run away, scream like a child, anything but step back into that room. Still, I did it. Tino, are you here?
From the darkness, Hooded Justice grabs Hollis.
Ooh! I flew like a rag doll.
Justice lands on him.
There was no escaping him. I felt ribs give way. He was too big, too fast,
and elbows him in the face.
I became certain he was going to kill me.
Blows rain down.
I began to hear music. The sad, sad music.
Hollis remembers Mo Vernon and the ride of the Valkyries from his youth.
He stopped then, and I heard him leave. I lay there, listening to my breathing. It sounded like it was coming from someone else. If I closed my eyes, I was sure I would die. I closed them anyway.
Wake up, Mr. Silly. Wake up.
The sun was high and bright when I came around. My face was the size of a ripe pumpkin, and my legs weren't working. I tried to haul myself up. And that's when I saw it all. Like a nightmare that keeps going when you open your eyes.
The room is filled with torture implements and blood.
From breakfast on through all the day, at home among my friends I stay, but every night I go abroad, afar into the land of Nod. I tried to make it all fit in my brain, all these years. That evil, sick son of a bitch. He should have killed me. Kid, can you hear me? Hang on, Tino. It's gonna be okay. I tried to focus on standing up.
The strangest things are these for me, both things to eat and things to see, and many frightening sights abroad, till morning in the land of Nod. Try as I like to find the way, I never can get back by day, nor can remember plain and clear the curious music that I hear. Tino Musante lies tied to a table, blindfolded and unharmed.
It was all too much. Everything went black. Again.
The Ride of the Valkyries plays on a phonograph.
Such sad music. The saddest thing I can imagine. Mo Vernon used to blast it from his phonograph in the shop. When he fed that tailpipe hose into the window of his car, he played it one last time. When Dad and I found him there, the phonograph needle had dug an unbreachable groove into the end of the record. That music became the great sadness for me. From that day on, it filled the background of those moments when I faltered. I could hear it that morning in that room with that poor kid I saved. They gave me the key to the city. Someone at City Hall decided it was time to honor me, I guess. They didn't know about hooded justice, or how I let this all happen under my nose. They just knew I saved the kid. The mayor was there, with a big-time actress and her husband, the baseball player.
Nite Owl accepts the key on a stage with Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio.
But under all the cheers and the clapping, I could hear the music. It wouldn't leave me alone anymore.
Chapter 6. The Last Minute.
It had been 2 weeks since that night with Justice. When I finally came to, I was able to free the kid and get him home. Every day and night since then, I'd been out, vainly searching for hooded Justice. This wouldn't be over until I brought him in. People spoke, giving testimonials. Geez, one girl was 8 when I helped her.
Saved me and my brother, even though he was hurt awful bad and had...
They brought quite a few people up to honor me, and dragged 4 of my men out of that inferno before it collapsed, are dead. They saved Mrs. Mosante and little Tino for last.
God bless you, sir. Bless you.
I realized suddenly how badly I needed this. To know that what I'd done meant something to someone. When the music stopped, I said the only thing I could. Thank you.
That night, Hollis and Byron visit Nelson, but he hasn't seen Hooded Justice since their breakup when he went underground. All he can tell them is that he used to live in their old base after it was abandoned, and that he's mentally disturbed and more dangerous than they know. Nelson says that if they find him, he'll kill them before he'd let them bring him in.
The tower, like the nose on our face, right in front of us. We could have called the cops or the feds. If they thought they had Justice in there, they'd surround the place with an army. But it had to be us. We had to bring him in. I knew Byron didn't want to do this. I could feel it. Still, he didn't hesitate. We decided to come at it from the water. It seemed the best way to catch him unawares.
A small boat pulls up to the waterside entrance.
We knew that if he saw us coming, we wouldn't stand a chance. We probably didn't stand a chance anyway, but here we were. Damn, rusted shut.
Looks like we climb.
Nite Owl and Mothman scale the rock face.
That's when the rain really started to come down. It was as if someone wanted to make this as hard as possible. The climb was exhausting. We were too old for these types of games.
Give me a second to get out of this harness.
We'd hoped for the element of surprise, but that was long gone. If he was there, he had surely spotted us by now.
Hooded Justice watches his old friends approach from a high window.
It was time for all of us to confront this head on.
They enter the base.
We know you're here. Be a man and show yourself.
Maybe he isn't here. After all, it was just a hunch.
Oh, he's here. I can feel it.
Hollis! Look out!
A crate tumbles down and Byron shoves Hollis out of the way and it lands on him instead.
Ah!
Byron had saved me, but one of the boards clipped me in the head as I went over. It took me a few seconds to clear my head. Thanks, Byron. That crate could have... Byron? Byron, where are you? As if in answer, an ear-splitting scream ripped through the tower.
Ah!
The scream choked off to a gurgle as I raced through the corridors. Hang on, Byron. I rounded a corner and felt my heart leap into my throat. There he was, more terrifying than ever.
Hooded Justice holds Mothman in his grip.
You've made a grave mistake coming here. Take this cretin and leave, or I will kill the both of you.
He sets Mothman down.
And I suppose that was the moment. The blackness opened up and pulled me in. Pulled me down past the surface to the horrors that rippled and teemed beneath. Love's lost forever. Betrayal and tragedy. Dark and final remembrances.
What kind of stupid shit fights crime with a noose around his neck?
I could lie here and claim I was out of my mind. That anger and fear had driven me into a psychotic rage. But the truth is, I knew exactly what I was doing.
Nite Owl dives at Justice, bracing an arm on his head and yanking on his noose with all of his strength, snapping his neck.
Yeah. He was dead before he hit the ground. Even lying there dead, he scared the hell out of me. I heard Byron groaning in the darkness. Byron, can you hear me?
Hollis removes Byron's mask.
I think I'm gonna retire now.
Huh. Okay then. Come on. As we got to our feet, we heard a horrible wailing. Nelson. I guess our talk had got him thinking as well.
What have you done?
He was screeching at us, something about not letting us touch Justice, unmask him. I barely heard him. I'd never even thought about unmasking him. To me, he had never been anyone but Hooded Justice. As far as I was concerned, there was no one beneath the mask. We left him there. I got Byron home and then went back to my apartment. I had no idea what Nelson was going to do. I half expected the police to show up at my door. The base explodes. I realized I didn't care. I'd done the right thing, and whatever the consequences, I'd face them proudly. In the morning, the papers carried a big story about a freak explosion at an old malting mill across the river. The entire building was destroyed and disappeared into the depths of the river.
It crumbles off the cliffside and into the water.
I assume it was Nelson. Perhaps covering our tracks, or maybe it was something more romantic. The warrior's funeral for his lost mate.
Nelson watches the base burn and sink from afar with tears in his eyes.
Like I said, I didn't care. I slept like a baby. I'm not sure why I didn't retire then, but I'm glad I didn't. I'd kept my promise, and my heart was lighter for it. For a few months it was great to simply work my neighborhood without the burden I'd been carrying. But it was getting harder to keep up.
Nite Owl rests against the wall after taking down a gang of thugs.
It was time to take stock. I wasn't getting any younger, and I'd done my part.
He examines his crow's feet in the mirror.
Living this sort of life hadn't left me with many lasting connections, but the ones I did have began to mean more and more.
Hollis plays with Laurie on a beach.
There was a new breed of heroes emerging. Young and brilliant and more effective than we'd ever been.
Ozymandias makes his debut.
Everyone knows who came along next.
Dr. Manhattan disassembles a revolver and holds all the pieces in midair.
It was a pretty safe bet that the world would get along fine without Nite Owl. So I packed it in. They gave me a dinner and a statue, and the whole thing was swell. I even got to meet the good doctor. He seemed nice enough, but the entire time my mind was chanting, "Not human, not human." Byron had gotten worse by the month. He had decided to check himself into a clinic upstate. In a rare flush of lucidity, he had one last surprise he wanted to show me. Come on, Byron.
Okay. You can open your eyes now.
A sign hung on their building reads, "Opening soon, Mason Auto."
What? You don't like it? I had him redo the whole place. You said you wanted to fix cars, right?
Byron Lewis is my best friend. I love him. Not like a brother, but as a brother. Hollis hugs Byron. And I cried on his shoulder because I knew this incredible gift was his goodbye. And so past meets present, and my story seems finished. Hollis awakens to the sound of Ride of the Valkyries. I thought the music was part of a dream, but it was coming from the front room. He goes to his living room. Hello? Dan, is that you? Phantom? Where are you, boy?
He's right here, Mason.
The comedian, Edward Blake, sits awaiting him, smoking a cigar and petting Phantom.
We're just sitting here enjoying the music. They say it soothes the savage beast.
You're not welcome here, Blake. Get out of my home.
Come on, Mason, unclench. I just dropped by to talk with you. There's no need for this to be nasty. I mean, hell, I'm unarmed. Just an old pal, come to chew the fat.
He scratches the dog's chin.
So it's up to you how this goes. I see you wrote a book. I suggest you sit the fuck down. Nice. So here it is, Mason. There are several interested parties that have become aware of your need to unburden yourself. I'm here to tell you, it can't happen.
Despite your best efforts, Blake, the last time I checked, this is still a free country. There isn't anything in that book but the facts. The truth.
The truth? You know, Mason, you're fucking hilarious. The truth? There is no truth. There are only truths. You follow me? Like your book there. It's the truth as you believe it. It's the truth as far as you know it.
Eddie picks up Hollis's statue.
Let me tell you a funny story. Back when you were brought in for the HUAC hearings, Justice disappeared. That didn't sit well with Mr. Hoover. He approved a bureau-wide effort to find him. The first thing I did was follow you and Byron. I staked out your little clubhouse, and when you were gone, I tossed it. I found all the crap you'd gotten off Ursula. The tapes were something to hear. That doctor pal of hers was one smart cookie. She and Ursula sure seemed to know what a sick fuck Justice was. They got me wondering about Justice and whether he might have been involved in her case. It occurred to me that Ursula was killed in the Boston area. It was a long shot, but I went up there to see what evidence there was. Maybe there was a clue about Justice I could work. They had some bloody clothing and luggage. Inside the one bag I found Ursula's case files. She'd connected most of the dots from what I could see. Her suspect was an immigrant strongman at a traveling circus. The circus worked the East Coast, and their show dates lined up with the kids going missing. She figured this guy for a Nazi she knew back in Europe. The fucker wore a mask, just like Justice. I figured maybe they were the same man.
Eddie examines a playbill for circus strongman Rolf Mueller.
I put the bureau on it. They got in touch with Germany and it came back like she said. He'd swapped Mueller from Mueller, but it all fit. The story we got was that this fuck was too sick, even for the Nazis. He disappeared in early '39. Everyone just assumed the Nazis had executed him. But he'd come over here. It all lined up. He was a smart fuck. He's picked a perfect setup. Kids go missing at a circus. It happens all the time. I decided to pay him a visit.
Rolf turns in shock as Eddie arrives.
Was?
Gott!
Let's just say the big top circus had to find itself a new strong man.
Eddie has strangled the big man with a belt.
I tossed his trailer, but I was pretty certain this shit wasn't Justice. He looked to be pushing 60. One thing caught my eye. Probably the only personal thing I found in that dump. A kid's book. It was the same as the one you had with Ursula's tapes. Had a picture of him from years ago with some poor kid. Probably one of his victims. But it gave me a thought, looking at that kid, about how to maybe draw out Justice. I knew all about the kid you found in that old building years back. So I kidnapped that Musante kid from your neighborhood. He was scared shitless, but I didn't hurt him. It was all a setup to draw you in.
Eddie ties up Tino while dressed as Hooded Justice. The rest was easy. I just had to give you a good look at me in that costume. Oh, and pound the crap out of you. I knew how obsessed you were. I figured if you thought it was justice, you'd lead me to him somehow. I never forgot what he did to me. I just wanted him brought down, disgraced. I didn't think you'd kill him.
Hollis's expression has changed to one of shock.
Told you it was a funny story. Mr. Hoover and other interested parties think you'd be better off writing a more light-hearted look at the past. More of a sunny reminiscence, as it were. It's either that, or I take care of it. It's not just your ass, Mason. If you have to go, think of Byron, Nelson. Think of... well, you get the picture. If I have to come back here, you won't wake up to music. You won't wake up at all. That's a truth you can bank on. See you later, hero.
Eddie leaves as the record runs to the end.
He left me there, staring into a blackness of my own creation. I'd killed the wrong man. That night in the tower, he would have killed us. Of that I'm certain. But it was all my fault. We wouldn't have even been there that night if I hadn't been so blind. Ironically, I'd spent the last week editing my book for the sake of my old friends. It was looking at little Laurie and finally realizing what Sally had been trying to get through my thick head. There were things that were more important than the truth. It didn't take much work to cut out the parts Blake was talking about. The one part I didn't cut was Blake's attack on Sally. Fuck him. He can carry that, and if he wants to kill me, so be it. I burned everything to do with it. I figured I would go to hell now. The way I was brought up, that's what happens to people who don't confess their sins. But my friends won't have to bear the burden of my guilt. I gave everyone what they wanted. A sunny remembrance.
Laurie plays Guess Who with Hollis.
I realized that carrying all that horror inside me was a small price to pay. I damned myself for Ursula, and Sally, and Nelson, and Byron, and Laurie. Most of all, for Laurie.
She throws her arms around his neck and hugs him.
The book was a smash, and because it was the only real accounting of our careers, to the public it became the truth.
A circular sign sells Hollis's book, reading, "The Secret Life of a Superhero, Under the Hood, on sale now."
There's even a young man who's foolish enough to want to carry on the Nite Owl name. I know he'll do better than I ever did. I mean, how could he do worse?
The round shape of the new owl ship hangs in the night sky, as Nite Owl and Rorschach set out for their patrol.
That leaves me right where I want to be, doing what I did during those happy years with my dad and old Mo Vernon.
My pops wanted to tow it to the wreckage, Mr. Mason. He said it ain't worth fixing. What do you think?
Hollis examines the round part of an engine.
Grab me my socket set, boys. It'll never be like it was when it was new, but there's still plenty of life in this old baby.
The end. And there's plenty of life left in Before Watchmen, as this tale, while now over, is only the beginning. The books don't tie into each other much, but one strong connection is that between Hollis and Dan Dryberg, the new Nite Owl. And Hollis will return as part of his book as a young Dan finds his owl cave and offers to help Hollis cover his tracks better, and ends up being trained by him and inheriting the mantle. Hollis presents Dan with his confession, the story we've just seen, and decides to let Dan be his judge. So while this information is generally lost to public history, it's not entirely gone, and will have an effect on the world to come. But that's for later on. The next series I'll adapt after some time will be Ozymandias, and his book tells his life story from learning to defend himself from bullies with karate as a child, to traveling the world as a young man, to building his fortune and developing his superhero identity merely to cover his own quest for revenge, and realizing his new path in life, all the way to his bitter ending phase and his finding of the Architects of Fear, his main inspiration for his ghoulish plan. The other series will all come in time. Dollar Bill and Moloch will likely share an episode when it's time, but the others will each get their own. So I hope you've enjoyed this first series in Before Watchmen, and this peek behind the official history of the superheroes of Watchmen. I hope you found it a believable extension and development of a mostly blank slate into something with character and meaning. And as its creators do, I hope it only enhances your enjoyment of the original work. Well, that'll do it for this one. So until next time, take care out there. And as always, thanks for watching.